fact, like we have reached Nartiang right now, and this is the place where you have the largest collection of stone monoliths. And the village is on the other side, and of course this side also there's an extension of the village. But right now, like we will just go inside and like we'll see about the stones, and there's a lot of records about as to how and when like these stones were erected. So let us go inside now and see what we have. Nartiang, in a place where we have this large collection of monoliths, and there are different stories, and of course, as we all know that in most of the tribal societies we have very strong legends and folk tales, and so much so regarding this place also in Nartiang. There is a very interesting story as to how the stones have been erected in this place. And if you go by the specification of the stone, it is said that like it is 26 feet long, and to be more precise, 26 feet 5 inches, and also the breadth is 6 feet 9 inches. As far as the thickness is concerned, it is 2 feet 3 inches. It's indeed very huge, and one would just imagine, or rather just speculate as to how a single individual can erect such a huge stone. We have important records as being given by the British people, who had come over to this area, who had toured, and one important man who have really done a lot of work on this stone monolith was C.B. Clark. Now he came over to this area in the year 1870, and we have to depend much on his writing, and so much so also there was another man by the name of J.H. Hutton who came in the year 1925. And as we all know that in many tribal societies we have very strong folklores, tales, legends, so much so that are being colored with myths also. Now historians have been trying to look into that particular area. They try to link it up the understanding of the erection of these monoliths along with the myths and legend, which today we can say to be a very important or integral part in understanding the tribal societies. Now the studying of the monoliths in today's context is gained much in prominence, especially people who are involved in anthropology, who wants to link up this kind of practices, whether they're linked up with rituals or whether there is any kind of sacrifices which are involved, which the people, maybe they have some kind of a link with their traditional religion. Now if you go by the oral tradition of the people, you have a very strong reference to one man by the name of Mar Palanki. And Mar, the word Mar itself in the local context, it would mean a giant. Perhaps this man was huge. And the story goes like this, that Mar Palanki, he had single-handedly erected this huge stone. But as the story goes on, they say that like initially he had some kind of a problem, because a pit had to be dug, and he tried once, twice, and then like the stone did not really fall in place, you know. Every time like it would just still or fall down on the side. And the story goes on to narrate like this, that he sent one boy, you know, to go down to that pit, and in the process he dropped one lime container into that pit. And when the boy went down to pick that lime container, that was the time when he just took this huge stone and just rammed it right through, you know, and the boy was crushed there. Now, what's really the meaning of this? What is the significance of this? There's something which perhaps like one really have to go and look into the detail. Now, Nartiang, right from the days of the Jaintia Raj, if you go back to the 16th century, right from 1500 onwards, we find that the Jaintia kings, they were already under the influence of Hinduism. So much so that even, you know, like human sacrifices, the tantric cult, have already entered into the society. Whether, you know, ramming this huge block of stone into the pit where the boy was there is a part of that human sacrifice or not, that's something which we really have to look into. But not very far from here, there's a temple where it's been very famous as far as Hindu worshipping is concerned, and quite a good section of the people here in Nartiang, they are still the followers of this Hindu faith. And we do have in records, of course, even during the British time also, they have made a very strong reference about that temple where human sacrifices are being made. Now we can refer to one source. It's called the Journal of Anthropology of Great Britain. This is in the year 1870, and this has a lot to do with the writings of C.B. Clarke, who had come over to this area. Now C.B. Clarke, along with the other British administrators who were posted here, they even made a very strong recommendation to send a commission from England to survey these stone monuments, not just here in Giant Hills but also in the Khasi Hills. And interestingly, these monuments, they're also being described by Dr. Hooker and also a colonel by the name of Raban. And that time, in a review called the Calcutta Review, which came out in the year 1871, some description about this place, about the stones, be it here in Giant Hills or in Khasi Hills, also was being made. Apart from the writings of C.B. Clarke, we also have the writings of J.H. Hutton. Now, Hutton came after he had toured many areas in Nagaland and also in Manipur, and he came over to this area in 1925. Now, J.H. Hutton gave us a very interesting insight here when he says that Nartiang was a beautiful place, you know, when he came over. And there is a huge river which passes by the side of Nartiang. It's called the Mintang River, which is still very much there. And on the way towards Nartiang, we have seen just a glimpse of that river. Another interesting information which Hutton had given to us is this, that both the place and the people, they seem less sophisticated than elsewhere. Now, he used this word sophistication. What does he really mean by that? Well, you know, it's something which perhaps one have to really look into. He says that the people, they're not really sophisticated. Maybe like they did not really behave themselves well when he came over to this area, or could be other things. But whatever it was, the other aspect of his writing is this, that the place Nartiang, according to him, was a very ancient site, a very old place. And he tells us also that the street, that's the word he used the word street. I quote him, the street is worn out. Now, when I was trying to check this records of his, he says that like the streets are worn out in such a way where, you know, like maybe because of the people using the roads, or maybe because of the kind of bullock carts that's being made to ply on those roads. And he says that with time it got eroded to such level that you can measure that the houses are pretty high and the road is very low, so much so like to the tune of 30 feet. And that's the kind of description which he gives us. And most of the houses that time, you have to approach those houses through a flight of steps which are again made out of stone. Now whether the people, they have really made use of that road, or whether there was really that kind of a traffic where people had come and go through that road, now again perhaps there'll be other people who will be able to throw more light in that area. Now Hutton also gave us an interesting insight about another aspect. That is, Dr. Hooker, who had written about the stones here in Nartiang, the monoliths here in Nartiang, he compared them to the monoliths or the Stonehenge in England, and he used this description where he referred to this stones here as the Nartiang Stonehenge. And this place, it contains big stones as well as small stones, and they're all been cut out of granite. And furthermore, they are scattered all over the place, as we can see here. This place is a huge collection of these monoliths, big and small. In the local terms, the one which are standing are called Mo Pnien, and the flat table stones are called Mo Pentia. Some would also try to understand this as the Mo Pnien would mean motion rang, or the men, and the flat table stones are Mo Kantai or Mo Pentia, like that, That's a local term that's being used for it. Yeah, I've made a reference to Mar Palanki, and Mar Palanki was regarded to be the a trusted lieutenant of the Jaintia king, and the big stone no doubt was erected by him. And there was also another assistant of his, called Luskar Lamare, and the rest of the stones here being erected by the local people of Nartiang itself. If we try to look from the historical records, we see that the Jaintia king used to have his darbar here at times, because this is the marketplace, and perhaps the time definitely there will be lots of people around, will be coming from the neighboring regions selling their wares here. Today it's considered to be a very sacred place, this region, and the king would definitely be, I guess, sitting in this huge platform here, flat table stone, and there are also other smaller ones which perhaps his other deputies, other officers would be sitting, and the rest, the smaller ones, would be meant for the common people perhaps to come sell their wares and things like that. C.B. Clarke had also mentioned something like this, that as far as the stonework of this place are concerned, after all they are granite rocks, very hard. He says that the kind of implements, which the people are having in this region, iron implements or whatever it might be, it would be very difficult for them to cut or give shape to the stones. But then this big question that, how did they manage to do it? And if we try and look around, we find that there are some which have a very beautiful shape, and perhaps with an angle also. For example, that one out there. We find that it's being cut in such a way where, the edges itself is very fine. And Clarke gave us an information that all these are the artisans from the plains. Now, the Jaintia kingdom as such have extended towards the Bengal plains. Jaintiapur is considered to be the winter capital of the king. This place, Nartiang, is the summer capital of the Jaintia king. He comes and goes. And out there, because of his command and the kind of authority, the kind of administration, which is very different, when you try to compare the plains and the hills. The king, that way he was having a dual kind of an administration. In the hills, it was a kind of a republican form of administration, whereas in the plains, it was very monarchical. The king is in the authority there. And he was able to get those people who has a better kind of ways and means perhaps to give shape to the stones. But again, to think about these stones from where they've been brought, because this place, this region here, don't really see much of granite. But of course, if you go to another village from here called Nartiang. There's a huge deposit of these granite stones. Is it really possible that the people that time they carried the stones from that village to this place? And in most cases, these stones are being erected in order to commemorate something, one way or the other. And around this collection of stones, just on the side of these areas, we find that there are also lakes and ponds which are being dug by people at different point of time. We have a reference to Sajar Nangli during his migration. Apart from the Thatlaskin lake, which we see on the highway, there are again ponds and lakes here which he had dug during the time when he was migrating with the people. These are things which, you know, like we see in the local tradition, in the folk tales, and many more, like, you know, which people has to share. But then there are also references where Clark gave us that in the case of Khasi Hills, people has a different method as to how to cut the stones. He says that they use fire and water. Fire and water. And most of the monoliths in the Khasi Hills are being fashioned in that manner. So as to say that, you know, like they'll make a mark on the stone, build up a big fire, and then when it will be very hot, water will be poured, and that helps the rock to crack. So that's information that we get from the British records. But here, looking at the size of the stone, whether that kind of a method will really work, now we have to ponder on it a bit. Now we were talking about the method as to how the stones are being cut in place. Now if you go by the method where fire and water were used, now once would you know, imagine as to how they were able to give this kind of a shape, you know. See, from here you can make out that it's round, the entire thing. So one would really imagine and ponder that whether that kind of a method would really work in giving this kind of a shape. And like this stone, there are plenty more which has a very round and neatly cut kind of shape. But then, as Clark have suggested, the kind of tools which was brought from the plains with the help of the Bengali artisans, perhaps they would be in a better position to give proper shape to this kind of stones. Now we are on the other side of this place, and here, as we can see, there are a huge collection of small slab of stones. And again, if you go by what the local people has to share here, they say that this is a marketplace, and we can see, like, you know, it's very prominent where people, perhaps right from the ancient times until very recently, till it was taken over by the Archaeological Survey of India, that people, they would still carry out their trade and businesses here. These are the stones where people would sit down and sell their wares. Now another area where there's been a lot of talk and debate, which have been where the people have been very, very curious, is on the question as to how these stones are being transported, you know, from one place to another. If these stones were not really found in this specific area, that means these stones might have come from somewhere, maybe nearby or maybe far. But that again, like how they managed to bring them here, there are many stories. Apart from the myth and legends which are there, the other manner or other way, as we can compare with any other civilization, is this, that people, they use wooden rollers, you know, wooden rollers, where this huge slab of stones would be placed on those wooden rollers, and then they would also use this a kind of what do you call? It's called rattan ropes, where, you know, like if you look at the tree in around us, we can still see those climbing kind of creepers, you know, creepers, climbing ones, thick ones, and they would tie that around those huge stones, and a lot of people would be involved, pulling them, using those wooden rollers. But then there's again another big question here. What about those slab of stones which are placed on top of those monoliths, you know, like we can see in the Khasi Hills. Throughout Khasi Hills we see, you know, this huge slabs being placed on top of that. Information goes like this, that make a bamboo frame, and below the bamboo frame they would put a lot of mud, you know, and through that bamboo frame they would try to push those stones, place it right there on the top, and then when it's properly set, they would again remove all the earth that's there around and the bamboo frame. And perhaps even here also, as we can see, like especially for the huge slabs, wooden rollers must have been used, you know, one way or the other, or else it will be very difficult for the people to bring such huge stones and place them here. And there is also, you know, a very interesting story which is still circulating around the people here, that in the olden days, people, they would just say a word, and that word is so powerful that even the small creepers which are there around them, for example, pumpkin creepers, those things would be used, tied around the stone and dragged. Well, this kind of story today doesn't really hold much water, but nevertheless, these stories are there to stay, and people still believe in those stories. There's every possibility that this huge stone must have come from this area itself. Like we can see the huge boulder and some other boulders scattered in the other side of the hill. And as we can see just around here, there's still quite a good number of them around. And the other aspect of it is this, that like during the time of the Jaintia king, he always used to come on his elephant, and perhaps along with him there will be also many more, part of that entourage of the king. And maybe elephants are being used one way or the other to drag and to pull this huge stone. We are in the temple premises, and it took us around 5 to 6 minutes to reach this place. It's hardly a kilometer from the sites where the monoliths are being placed, and right now we are here in the temple, and we're going to move ahead and then see as to what's really there inside the temple. But before going to the temple, just straight ahead we have the gateway. This is a very old gateway which goes back to the days of the Jaintia king. It's the passage through which the Jaintia king, he had come and to enter to the temple. This gate will serve as a kind of a model for many of the houses which are there in and around Giant Hills. And what is also interesting is this, that the houses which are being made here, they're made in such a way where the entrance is always from the front side of the house, not really from the side, just like we see in most of the houses which are there in Sylhet or in Mymensingh district, which the doorway is always from the side of the house. In the case of the Jaintias, there's only one entrance and it's always from the front side, and the hooked shape is always being maintained. That's the typical Jaintia house as far as the architectural design is concerned. Just outside the gateway we have these stones here. These are the sitting place, and very much a replica of those stone monoliths which we have seen in the marketplace. We are very fortunate to have here with us the priest of the temple, Mr. Malloy Deshmukh, and he'll be able to tell us something about this Durga temple. As we know from historical records, this temple is a very old temple, and till today a lot of people from different parts of the region and also from other parts of the country, they would come and show their reverence, pay homage to this temple. Ite Malloy yebi khuna ki jak chphang gani ga temple em hini.
Ye gani ga temple hini ga mandir hini ta gam ga sakti pit ngam angi hap hap kamikha wi hini le hap wi hini hap ga the UP da kejat anda kesu chanai hap ga yang Durga sa
Kau am pintu hini ni temple to gua hap kejat yang ga blai Durga.
Blai Durga.
Te man kleng thau hap tu man chiba hap hini.
Sanphau ar. Sanphau ar teng hap ga tong hi chiba hini sa hap ga.
Man hini thau.
Hini thau.
Te ibu kuna nga kejak chpang ong pi man dia kenya pi blang ma. Haga met i kam tu ong pi. Ostomi ma. Teman da pompi kita ke belang jum Islam.
Beem.
Jum Islam.
Jum Islam.
Nado itu por dokan ni lah.
Dokan ni lah.
Te kita ke belang ong pi hap pen riam kya kami durbru.
Ngam durbru.
Man bru men saya wan bru cendrang na kentai na.
Bru cendrang.
Itu man yo pen serim itu kam kenya bru.
Yo kenya bru
Yang pos emo okay.
Ngat ni te yang ite arpa kondep tan yupi. Te I da Maharashtra poi. Dapat Maharashtra ya aga sem Jaintia pur I hapo silat dapat silat le yung separate yung isem mandap le yung separate yung I chi yung po ite ha po Bangladesh chi yung po Nartiang to chi yung tip chinu em gisa ये हमें तो पहला ये हमें तो शक्तिपीठ है जैसे कामाख्या में एक अंग गिरा माइका यहाँ में भी एक अंग गिरा माइका यहाँ में माइका बाव अर्ध गिरा यहाँ में पहला आदमी बलि होता था अभी तो आदमी बलि नहीं होता है अभी बकरा को आदमी बनाता है आदमी बनाने के बाद अष्टमी के रात में 12 बजे बलि होता है। यहाँ में अभी भी खून नहीं निकलता है वो बकरा के बास से। तो यहाँ में तो 29 जनरेशन चल रहा है हमको लेके। तो यहाँ में फास्ट पुजारी नरेंद्र कुमार देशमुख अभी है मलय देशमुख। हम लोग पहले महाराष्ट्र का था, अभी महाराष्ट्र से जैंत्या राजा लेके आया सिलेट से हम लोग 3 घर सेपरेट आया। एक घर नर्तिंग में और एक घर अभी भी है जैंत्यापुर में और एक घर हमको पता नहीं कहाँ में है। Teman ini juga lihat nemi. Teman mana kes ni have lihat nem kat ar je se.
Orang tak apa lah kan?
Tak apa. Dan iman kes ni have lihat nemi. Asim je ni se. Email lihat have lihat, isni lihat lihat. Teman dat em ni dulu ni lihat kau. Gini white pambru nong cua. Gani nong em kau. Gani white pambulan. Gani nong em kau.
Pada kam tu gitu.
Gani pen em kam gani. Ini sebenarnya cispa apa tu li pambulan ni se.
Buat mo?
Em buồn nữa mình tìm một năm aspa năm tam chứ, mình năm tới aspa nhà phao từ lì bám ní, từ bên.
Jadi hawa pom nam tu pom itu tipe kau?
Bên artili yang white bam belang, ini white bam belang ini, từ bên arut itu piu, apa ya ram bam belang saya menjadi tu semua.
Oh kita perlu nabar mi oleh. Ada ibat.
Ada ibat. Tengah wen cispa katnya tu lì bam modok semua. Ini wen bam modok ngai, ini lihat nim modok ngai, saya mulai dari semua.
Jadi ye भी बताइए कि ini kalau niam be ni man lagi ni kan je ni pom ini.
Ini kat aru je met you pi pami ini. Kat aru je met embroidery buat pami. Mana pami ini kat aru je met tem hoi de you gi bru hoi em kam gi bru sa.
Oh,
duk semen ni. Wang bai mar tengah le MPU le hoi MPU le. Semen bai hab le ni.
Kamu orang kurang dang cua neni em ke wi kerja kamu kena lah.
Em hadok mi hawa mi tang gete mi tang gete. Hite thau no blai le cua iste.
No. Pom yo bro ini kita nam kam itu bekerja airport le puja.
Ikhle wi dong se.
Wi dok lah.
Wi dok le.
Kita ke kedok yang beruan lain dengan pok ini hak sebentar.
Hadok wang tang tang.
Lah dengan pok ini semua.
Thau no blai le se.
तो ये भी बताइए कि जब हिते हेलट kamu pergi kat ni em kita tahu dah arti dia.
Hite thau pambelang ich bon gitu ang pi sepatnya kau tu le pambelang ni halai pam gewi ha pai.
Tapi kalau em ka kerja kamu angka belang em mana gua.
Belang em ni. Ngeblang em yupi hajrong hapam gewi. Le em belang yang pujari mjok gi pam hajrong se. Le em belang gam yang ngau lam om tu snem no. Mjok gi pam mjok em pam hajrong. Oh hap lai chwa kan. Yang pujari hapam ni. Pam le yang ngapam chua. Mjok pam yang gi as ne. Yang ngapam chua man de pam yang em. दुर्गा पूजा का टाइम में दुर्गा माँ को विसर्जन देने के बाद में यहाँ में आके हम लोग डांस करने पड़ता है। लंगडो और हम यहाँ में दलोई पत्थर बैठता है, यहाँ में हम रहता है, वहाँ में लंगडो रहता है। लंगडो के बाद यहाँ में हम लोग पहला डांस करने पड़ता है, तब दुर्गा पूजा खत्म होता है। ढोल बजाने के लोग ढोलिया लोग यहाँ में आके हम लोग को पहुँचाता है। पहुँचाने के बाद दाव भी वो पठावली का दाव जो देखा वो भी एक साथ में जाता है, हम का साथ में एक साथ में रहता है। यहाँ में जो डांस होता है ये डांस का नाम है छाट मस्ती। ये हम लोग जब पहला नहीं करेगा उस लोग कोई भी डांस करने नहीं सीखेगा, पहला हम और लंगडो करने पड़ता है।
We're on the other side of the hill, and right now we're in front of the Shiv temple. The priests have just gone inside, and we'll just go and see what's there really.
युद्ध करने के बाद में ब्रिटिश ये उसका बदन लेके भाग गया, ये उस लोग का हथियार फेंक के चला गया। यहाँ में हम लोग हर रोज पूजा करनी पड़ता है, ठीक 12 बजे, नहीं तो 12:30 1 बजे। यहाँ में नहीं पूजा करने से नहीं होता है। दिन में 2 बार पूजा करना पड़ता है, यहाँ में सुबह और शाम। सुबह में दिन में होता है 12 बजे, रात में होता है 7 बजे 6 बजे ऐसे। तो यहाँ में आरती होता है 7 बजे और नित्य पूजा होता है 12 बजे। ये पूजा ये मंदिर का नाम है शिव जी का मंदिर। हथियार इसलिए यहाँ में रखा शिव जी का मंदिर में, उस ये मंदिर का साथ में अभी भी सांप निकलता है, ये कभी कभी। अभी तो पता नहीं, अभी तो है कि नहीं, ये तो हमको भी पता नहीं। अभी नहीं निकलता है, न निकलता है, ये पता नहीं। पहले तो सांप निकलता है ये कमर के अंदर से।
We have just come out from the temple, Shiv temple, and interestingly, inside the temple, we could see that there were a number of muskets, both big and small. Sometimes makes me wonder and think as to why do they have to keep these guns, these muskets, firearms for that matter, inside the temple. Perhaps it has a lot to do with the belief of the people here, or a kind of a worship which is quite different, maybe for a kind of a cult, a Shakti cult or things like that. But it is again very interesting to see that there are firearms inside the temple, which perhaps one of its kind. We don't really see this kind of things in other temples.